Well, 12 months ago, I took a very long shower. It was one of those showers where you're so far away that you forget whether you've washed your hair or not, so you end up shampooing it twice. I'm not sure what it is for me about water and nudity, but when I was standing under the stream that day, I came up with an idea that would end up on the front page of BuzzFeed. An idea that would eventually result in me being naked on some of the biggest websites in the world. Why the gratuitous nudity? Because of a little idea called #MyBodyMyTerms. In a nutshell, 20 people, both celebrities and everyday New Zealanders, posed in varying states of undress, marked with the words, "My body, my terms," to spark a conversation about revenge porn, victim blaming, consent, and sexual violence. Here's a snapshot.
It's my body.
It's my body. It's my body.
My terms.
My terms. My terms.
Why my body, my terms? Because we have a problem. Here in New Zealand, we have the worst sexual violence statistics in the OECD. And worldwide, we're witnessing an epidemic of sexual misconduct, from campus rape in the United States, to the soaring rates of revenge porn in Japan, to jihadi brides in the Middle East and beyond. Was it always like this, or is it suddenly worse? It's hard to know, because sexual violence has historically been underreported, and even the small number of cases that do make it to court still have a notoriously low conviction rate. But whatever the trends in the statistics are telling us, what we do know today is that 1 in 5 New Zealand women will experience sexual violence in her lifetime. 1 in 5. Take a look around you. Statistically, in this room, there will be many of us who have experienced sexual violence. It's not okay, and it's time for us to act. But when it comes to talking about sex, let alone sexual violence, many of us have no idea where to begin. It's something that we all do, but would probably rather starve than sit around the dinner table and have a conversation about it. I remember when my father asked me at age about 11 whether we needed to have a talk about sex, I would quite happily have sunk right through the floor. And in fact, 11-year-old me would probably be mortified watching this talk. Generational, societal, cultural, and religious taboos restrict discussion around sex, leaving questions unanswered, prejudice unchallenged, and creating a frankly dangerous sexual landscape, especially for our young people. As a result of our reluctance to talk about sex, conversations like My Body, My Terms seem thoroughly modern. But human sexuality is as old as time. And if you think that pornography is a recent invention, you are seriously underestimating the sex drives of cave people. The earliest known naked images are thought to be between 35 and 45,000 years old. This primitive carving, found in France's La Ferté, believe it or not, is a vulva. Our ancestors were creating sexually explicit images long before the advent of the camera phone. Using their primitive tools, they carved their pornographic art into the walls of their caves, and some such images still survive today. So human sexuality is ancient. As proven by our mere existence, human beings have been having sex for a very long time. And while our experience of sex and sexuality has been digitally enhanced, it is debatable whether our sense of humanity has kept up, or whether it's been hijacked over the years by codes, morals, and attitudes that are frankly no longer fit for purpose. In 2016, our tools are vastly more advanced, and expressing our sexuality has never been easier. From dick pics, to sexy selfies, to sex tapes, and beyond, our natural interest in sexuality has simply evolved to fit the technology that we have at our disposal. Ironically, however, while our devices are constantly updated, so constantly updated that it's annoying, many of our societal attitudes are basically Victorian. What we need is an attitude update. Because when you're faced with such a disconnect, what could possibly go wrong? Evidently, rather a lot. A few years ago, I became aware of the ugly phenomenon that is revenge porn. For the uninitiated, revenge porn happens when private images and videos are shared with those for whom they were not intended. It can happen as a result of hacking, when thwarted lovers seek revenge. It can even happen when people share photos or videos of their partners without their consent. It can happen in any number of ways. It is wrong, devastating, immoral, and illegal. When private images and videos end up splashed over the internet, the levels of victimization are numerous. There's shock, betrayal, threats, ugly comments from random internet users, and even, in some extreme cases, scary slut-shaming vendettas when offended internet users will post the private details of revenge porn victims online, such as the addresses for their home and workplace, and even their phone numbers. And yet, one of the most common responses to revenge porn is to ask victims, well, why would you pose for a naked photograph anyway? Why would you put it out there if you didn't want it to be seen? Do these sound familiar? Where have we heard questions like these before? How about, why would you wear that short skirt? Why would you walk down that dark alley? Why would you kiss him if you didn't want more? Victim blaming comes in many different shades. But when you think about it, when people are too ashamed to talk about sex, when they've had very little sexuality education, and when their attitudes are basically hundreds of years old, is it really surprising that so many people still blame the victim? Where do we get most of our information about sex these days? In the digital age, most people's first introduction to sex is found online, with easily available online porn to cater for every imaginable fetish or fantasy, and very few real-life conversations to provide context or education to refute myths. We're sending our young people out into the world with the latest technology, but we're not equipping them with the tools that they need to express their sexuality in safe, healthy, and meaningful ways. When people are so used to watching naked strangers online, and porn that is often made in very lo-fi ways, using ordinary-looking people and shared freely, how can we expect internet users to treat real people who've had their images and videos shared against their will any differently? When sex is all around us, but no one talks about consent or pleasure or respect or exploitation or empowerment, perhaps it's not surprising that women particularly, who are shown in sexual ways, are seen to be sluts. So when you're faced with a society that still shames people for being sexual, what do you do? If you're me, you try to turn that shame on its head. Here's me, naked, topless, exposed. This image has been seen by millions of people around the globe. Should I be ashamed of it? It's indisputably sexual, and yet here I stand in front of you, unapologetic. This image looks like softcore porn. It uses nudity to draw your attention, but it is just an expression of my sexuality, just as is every willingly taken sexy selfie. I'm proud of this image, and I have given my consent for it to be shared around the globe. But for the many thousands of others whose images and videos have been shared against their will and will be online forever, the violation will likely never end. So what can we do about it? It really is mind-blowingly simple. We need to talk about sex. We need to put aside our shame, to comprehensively educate our young people, not just about contraception and online safety, but about relationships and respect and pleasure, and most importantly, consent, which, fun fact, has been proven to lower the rates of teen pregnancy and to increase the age at which teens become sexually active. We need to tell our friends that women who have sex are not sluts. We need to explain to our brothers and sisters, our sons and our daughters, that the absence of a no does not mean yes. To talk about sex not as something impure or embarrassing or humiliating, but as something positive in the context of a mutually consensual and enjoyable encounter. But as 11-year-old Lizzie would tell you, these conversations are not particularly easy to have, yet, which is why we created My Body, My Terms. What we found with My Body, My Terms was that there is strength in numbers. When you bring together 20 people of varying backgrounds and ask them to talk about sex, you empower others to join in. When you start the conversation, people begin to contribute. When you create a safe and open place where people can talk freely, ask questions, and even challenge their own assumptions, you start to break through the walls of shame. So the next time your son or your daughter asks you an awkward question about sex or sees something on a screen that makes you feel uncomfortable, talk to them about it. Ask them whether they've been taught about consent at school. But don't make it a big deal, because it's not. Whether you want to think about it or not, they will eventually have sex. And when you update your attitudes, you can help them with theirs. The conversation has already started. Now we need you to join in. Kia ora.